Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I know there are many, many podcasts you could choose from, so that you choose us is not a small thing. Thank you. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. Thanks, as always, for your written reviews at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I want to tell you about my friend in Cincinnati named John Ruhlman. Now, he runs a company called U.S. Medical Plan. And John has been a sponsor of mine and a friend of mine for a long while. And he has gotten calls from this audience, including calls from my own family, calls from colleagues and friends of mine who have shopped with him their current health insurance plan. And he has saved friends and family thousands of dollars, literally. Let me give you for example. I have a friend who bought private health insurance for his family. His daughter had some special health needs that cost him quite a bit of money a month to get premiums covered for all of them. John found him identical coverage and saved him $2,000 a month. That's jaw-dropping money. My parents called John for a supplemental health insurance plan for their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. Now, every nickel is precious, particularly when you're sitting on an income that you've got to count on for the rest of your days and you're counting your change. $400 is a lot of money. All right, so that's what John can do for you. Or maybe if you have no health insurance at all and you think it's too expensive, I can't afford it right now. He has over 100 different private health insurance companies all over the country that he shops and compares so that he gets you the best rates and never cheats you on coverage, by the way. It doesn't mean it's some scant coverage. Great rates, great coverage. Let John and his team at usmedicalplan.com go to work for you today. You can also call 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321, usmedicalplan.com. Hey, good to be with you, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at that Capitol Dome this morning on the eve of what we hope will be a passage of the big, beautiful bill out of the Senate, at least those of us who want these tax cuts. I can't speak to the rest of the bill because we don't know everything that's in it just yet, but the tax cuts are the thing, and could the Senate be passing that out of there today? Who knows? The marathon voting session continues. It heads over to the House after that, and then who knows for sure. But, I mean, you're talking about a 4th of July due date. That's what the president wants. I'm not, as I said to you yesterday, I'm still not incredibly optimistic that the president gets that achieved by the 4th of July, but we shall see. Elon's been popping off about it, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But I was listening to a report on the way in this morning that piqued my interest. Every year when a Republican is in office, and every year we approach Independence Day, they start to shop stories about how Americans aren't proud to be Americans if Republicans are in office. Now, mind you, if a Democrat were in charge, you would hear it's mom and apple pie and pride busting at the seams, everybody waving flags. But because Trump's in office and winning, well, there's a surprising lack of interest in the 4th of July. I literally heard a report that said people are just not going to participate in Independence Day on Friday, Minnie. Some said because of the price of food, 7% year over year on beef prices alone. But they're also not participating, some of them, because they just don't feel pride in the country. And I thought, well, that's interesting. They don't feel pride in the country. And then sure enough, I got in here this morning, and here's a story from the Gallup people. Same thing. American pride slips to new low. Now, interestingly, the report I was listening to on the way in was a report, I think, like Wells Fargo or some financial institution. They were just surveying whether people were going to participate from a financial point of view, but they were asking people why they decided they were going to forego 4th of July barbecues or whatever. And apparently tucked in this thing was not feeling particularly patriotic. I thought, well, that's a strange thing for a bank to be asking people. How patriotic are you feeling? And then it's just so funny. You can, after a while, folks, you begin to, as Rush used to say, read the stitches on a fastball, and you understand the news cycle. If it's not the big, beautiful bill, there's really not much for the news to talk about right now because in every direction, it's pretty much positive for Donald Trump. You can't have that. A secure border? That's the worst. Oil prices coming down? That's the worst. Relative peace and calm in the Middle East? That's the worst. None of us, we're not embroiled in any kind of foreign wars. That's awful. You got foreign countries that are coming to the table and starting to make big trade deals. You've got trade surpluses now coming in because of the tariffs into the Treasury, which we'll get into in a little bit. The only thing left are the financial institutions, which interestingly are driven quite a bit by the Fed and the Fed chairman Jerome Powell, who Trump is now squarely after and in his sights, and we'll also tackle that in a minute. So it's like the financial institutions, oddly, even though NASDAQ, that's another one. NASDAQ closed, again, huge day yesterday. Record highs, capping the best quarter for NASDAQ in over a year. What's wrong? I mean, sincere question. Like, if someone asked you right now, are you proud to be an American, why in the world would you say no? Well, again, if you're peddling this fiction that secure borders and alligator Alcatraz is the next Auschwitz or something, then I suppose maybe that's the way you feel. Pride among Americans slipping to new low, says Gallup. A record low 58% of U.S. adults say they are extremely or very proud to be an American. So that's about 60%, which is up there, but 30% of Americans say they are not extremely or very proud. And that's down 9 points from last year, 5 points below the prior year of 2020. The 41% who are extremely proud, not statistically different from prior lows of 38% in 22, 39% in 2023. Now, I have to confess, if you'd asked me, am I proud to be an American during the Husks administration, I don't know, Fast Eddie, if I'm going to be completely honest with this audience, I love the country. I'm proud of what America stands for. I'm proud of American ideals, but I think I'd have to confess that with the current machination of the Republican Party and the husk in charge with cackle britches as the vice president, I don't know that I was feeling a tremendous sense of pride with that old withering phony that we were pretending to be president, you know? So I suppose, does president sway the way you feel in terms of pride in country?
I remember it was very dispiriting at the time, but honestly, Chris, all I could think of was those 13 service members that we lost in Afghanistan, and I thought, you know what,
yes.
Like, I have to suck it up and be patriotic and care because of, and I know that sounds like hokey. It literally is just every time I really wanted to strangle the husk, especially when he was giving awful speeches out in front of Independence Mall. I honestly thought, okay, like this is not the country. This is not, just because the government is bad doesn't mean that this is America.
Okay, so you are able to draw that bright white line of distinction between the government of the United States and the ideals and the people who make up the United States. That's the way you've been able to straddle that fence.
I have, yep. I say, you know, America's cities are great in spite of Democrats, not because of Democrats.
Well, that's another. So you would look at American cities and feel good about them? Or you're just saying you acknowledge Democrats are ruining them, but you're not mad at the city about it?
At least my own. I can say that at least my own. And I'm praying for New York. So,
in addition to the 58% of adults who are extremely or very proud, 19% say they're moderately proud, 11% say they're a little proud, 9% say they are not proud at all of their country, according to Gallup. The combined 20% on the lower end of the pride scale essentially ties the record 21% measured in 2020. Until 2018, less than 10% of adults had consistently said they had little or no national pride. In 2001, when Gallup first asked Americans how proud they were, 87% back in 2001 said they were extremely or very proud. And then after the 9/11 terror attacks, the figure increased to 90%, said that they were extremely or very proud. That number held at that level or higher between 2002 and 2004. Well, what has happened since then? How were we in the early 2000s, nearly 90% very or extremely proud in this country, to today? What's happened over the last 20-some years? Who has dominated American politics and American media for the bulk of the last 20 years? Well, the answer, of course, is Barack Hussein Obama. And the guy we were pretending was president for 4 years of that was naturally just an extension of him. So I really want you to consider this, and this is meaningful. You can actually track this. If Gallup has been tracking people's pride in this country, and it was like at an all-time high post 9/11, post George W. Bush, right through the mid-2000s, and George W. Bush's exit, once you hit about the late 2000s, 2010, that's that first couple of years of Barack Obama. And so here we are. Really, from about 2018 to today, we're about 20 years, or I should say 2008 to today, and just a little south of 20 years, Democrat politics and the Democrat agenda controlling most of the media have told you that the country is rotten and no good. You've been told our institutions are rotten and no good and had to be changed from the ground up. You've been told borders were bigoted. You've been told American foreign policy is bigoted. Our military is bigoted. If you have a couple of bucks on the account, you're a bad person. I'm trying to think off the top of my head here. We've been told Occupy Wall Street, right? Banks and financial institutions are bad. What hasn't the American left said is bad in this country? What have the American left not isolated and said, we got to take that down and take it out? It's not fair. Even, I remember once talking about the fact that the American automobile used to be such a source of pride for an American consumer, or buying that first home. You know, there were consumer things that people felt pride in. The American car was something. The idea of freedom and the open road. Well, I mean, in the Obama era, everyone was taught that the open road was the enemy and that getting behind the wheel of a car was a polluting thing, that you needed to be guilty if you were driving a big truck or an SUV or a Jeep. Walk or take mass transit. Banks were bad. Cars were bad. Everything has been rotten, and you've been told everything is rotten, and you've got at least a generation, probably two, that have been steeped in the politics of DEI and Occupy, and I mean, hell, look at the guy that now may be the favorite to be the next mayor of New York, a full-blown socialist, wanting to hijack the means of production in the interest of equality for all. I mean, the American ideal. You've got an entire generation or two of young people who are now of voting age. We read yesterday more of them are engaged in politics than ever before, and they have been taught to hate the country. Is it any wonder, then, that so many say they don't feel a pride in country? They've been taught that. Not here, though, ladies and gentlemen. Waving the flag and feeling great. I'm going to shoot off some extra fireworks. This is the Stigall Show. Digging a little deeper into this, and I don't mean to belabor it, but I do think it's very, very critically important to keep in mind and always understand. And sometimes those of you that have been longtime listeners of this show who may get tired of me beating the drum of why public school is such a problem and why you should rescue your children and grandchildren from public school if you can and go get them a proper education, homeschool them, or give them a private Christian school education. And no, that does not mean it costs you $100,000 a year and they wear a crest on their jacket. Like, if you come from this place where you think that having a different education than public schools got to break your bank, that's not true. It's just not true. It's factually untrue. And then you say, well, I can't do it. I don't know how to teach. That's also not true. My point is, never in American history has there been more available to you to help you as a resource if you are a parent or a guardian or a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever. If you're in charge of the education of young people, there's never been more available to you to get your young person out of the public school system. And I have maintained, and I've said often, I don't know if I've said it on this show, but I've said often through the years since I've become a passionate advocate for this very specific issue, we can't save the country if we don't stop indoctrinating our young people. Do you hear me? All of this talk about tax rates and securing the border and capitalism versus socialism versus communism, all of these things that we discuss are fine for we old heads. But you know the problem? We have generations coming up that are being taught to hate the country as founded. They don't understand founding principles. They don't care to learn them. And what they do know about them was written up and designed by a bunch of white slave-owning bigots who we shouldn't listen to anyway. There's got to be a new way forward. And if we don't all kind of collectively understand that that's the last couple of generations at least have been soaking in American hatred, there is no fixing the country, at least not permanently. I mean, Donald Trump is this great firewall right now. We are blessed, and there's a great level of comfort in knowing that he's in the White House, but he won't be there forever. Daddy's going to have to leave eventually. And the fact of the matter is, I talk about this on the show too, a lot of us, probably not you, don't take it personally because I know this audience is highly engaged, but a lot of us get I say us collectively, who are supportive of Donald Trump, a lot of us get comfortable that Trump's there so we can kick back and relax. Who needs to get engaged in the city council election? Who needs to get engaged in the school board election? Who needs to pay attention who's running for Congress? Who needs to pay attention to that primary? And then all of a sudden, lunatics win office again. And we're all running around with our heads on fire saying, how in the world can Zoolander be running New York? Or whatever his name is, Mad Manny. Well, it's because we go to sleep often. We really don't engage. Our guy wins and we go, oh, see you in 4 years. And our heads are on fire when it's too late. Because the surge of people who hate the country is real, it's constant, and you can kind of almost imagine Donald Trump holding the door or the dam, pressing against it, because it's just the pressure from behind him to come at him and knock down the walls of this country, literally and figuratively. It's very, very real. Younger generations less proud than older generations. This Gallup survey says it. Gen Z, the most distinct. It is a huge issue. More in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about Jerome. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair. Caroline Leavitt, the President of the United States. They've decided to go squarely at him now. Yesterday at the press conference, Caroline brought a chart out of all the nation's interest rates, and Donald Trump had scrawled a message on it as she held it up. 27.19. Here we go.
At the top is Switzerland. They're only paying a quarter for interest rates. Cambodia, Japan, Denmark, Thailand, Botswana, Barbados, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Cuba, Sweden, Morocco, Cabo Verde, South Korea, Algeria, Canada, Albania, Libya, Malaysia, China, New Zealand, Trinidad and Tobago, Czechia, Bolivia, Australia, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Kuwait, Papua New Guinea, Bosnia, United Kingdom, and the UAE are all paying lower interest rates than the United States of America, which has one of the hottest and strongest economies in the world. The president sent this note to the Fed chair. It says, Jerome, you are as usual too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the rate by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being lost, and there is no inflation. And the president is right. There is historically low inflation thanks to his policies.
Right. And yesterday, a huge day, 27-24. I mean, imagine if things are this good now and Jerome, too late Jerome, is keeping interest rates artificially high. Imagine how much better they could be than this. Listen.
Well, stocks ending the day with the S&P and NASDAQ closing at record highs again. That's as financials and communication services led the gains 2 days in a row now of record closes. The Dow's still about 2% from its last all-time high. For the month, the Dow rallied more than 4%, the S&P 5%, and the NASDAQ more than 6%. Today is also the end of the quarter, with the S&P posting its best quarter since December of 2023. It's also the end of the first half, and Treasuries posted their best first half stretch in 5 years.
And then there's this in 27-30, all that revenue that's pouring in from Trump's tariff policies that were sure to tank the economy and haven't yet.
How much we've been collecting in revenues. And I did this in part because Wilfred's here and he can talk about the UK trade deal. But just this is the monthly numbers And they have gone up a lot. June is actually set for another big increase of $27 billion. That is money coming into U.S. coffers from tariffs. We are collecting a lot of revenue. So far, guys, $121 billion has flowed into the U.S. government since the start of the fiscal year. It's still a tiny portion of the overall revenues that the U.S. government gets, but it's increasingly a lot, especially we haven't seen it in terms of the consumer paying off higher inflation.
So Jerome Powell claims we can't lower interest rates because we don't know, and principally, he said, we don't know what Trump's tariff policies are going to do to the economy yet. So we got to keep close to the vest here on lowering interest rates. Well, there you go. You just heard it. You just saw it. No, what we know is Jerome Powell is a political actor. He has an agenda. This is about our families. This is about our homes. This is about our future. September 2024, inflation 2.7%. It's now 2.4%. And Powell cut rates at that time from 5.25% to 4.75%. If you go back and look it up, in September, heading into the election, with cackle britches on the ballot, he cut rates and cut interest rates, and inflation was higher than it is now. Now, why did he do that? Of course, to support the husk and cackle britches. It was an in-kind political donation, is another way to think about it. Jerome Powell has long established this history of being tied to Democrat insiders and trying to benefit them. So now here we have inflation at 2.4-ish. Oil prices are dropping now to $64, $63 a barrel and plunging. No tariff-induced price spikes. And Powell has kept interest rates at something like 4.25% to 4.5%. Now, inaction on this is calculated. And it's calculated, in my estimation, to hurt Donald Trump, first and foremost, but more importantly, hurt you and me, the American public. This stuff hits us where we live, and this is where I said yesterday on social media, it's just a gentle criticism, gentle. I really do appreciate what Caroline pointed out on that chart and what President Trump is saying about Jerome Powell and pointing out that other interest rates in other countries are much lower. I do appreciate that, but I do kind of wish maybe there'd be a little more explanation as to why interest rates being lowered are critically important. And if you take a look at the housing market, that is Exhibit A. I talk a lot about housing market here. Home sales dropped by 2% in April of this year. And it's the lowest on record since 1995. $700 billion in unsold homes, clogging up the market. 44% of these homes are sitting on the market for over 60 days now. Median home prices, meanwhile, have risen by 3%. 30-year mortgages now sit at just under 7%. And if you're a first-time home buyer, you're sitting it out. You can't afford it. And this is what I do wish. You know, I was talking about younger people a minute ago. People in their 20s and 30s, maybe thinking about getting into the housing market for the first time, they don't dare. And a huge component of it is artificially high interest rates. The reluctance of people to sell because of interest rates so high. Yeah, maybe they cash their equity out, but they don't want to buy a new one because they don't want to get into they've got a 2-something% interest rate now. Maybe I've got right at an even 3. I sell my house today and I go to a 7% interest rate. No thanks. So families are stuck with mortgage rates of 5 and 6%, and they're paying around $2,800 a month on a $400,000 home. No hope of refinancing. And that's not to speak of Democrat areas that are reassessing their property values and hiking up their taxes to boot. That's why that SALT tax is so important to Republicans in high-tax states. And this damage goes well beyond housing, by the way. It threatens our whole future as a country. Housing alone doesn't define a crisis, but it's the survival of the country at large. We're facing a $37 trillion deficit. We need significant economic growth to keep Social Security and Medicare solvent. Lowering rates to 3%, just lowering the rate to 3%, could save billions annually on interest payments. Experts say something like a 1% rate cut could slash like $370 billion from our interest burden over a decade. Powell's his refusal to move off of this interest rate, it's costing all of us every single day. Social Security and Medicare are projected to go bankrupt by 2035 unless the economy is stimulated. And Congress, of course, has to curb its overspending as well, but that's another matter. The housing market is hugely important to all of this. It generates jobs and construction and tax revenue, and yet Powell is squeezing that housing market with these interest rates he refuses to move off of because of, well, politics. Congress completely ignoring the problem. Powell exacerbating the problem. Meanwhile, you and me are burdened with high mortgage payments and stagnant home sales and lost opportunities. So President Trump has demonstrated time and again, I just laid it out for you right off the top, his policies will and already have supercharged the economy, and that's in spite of Jerome Powell and in spite of Congress. So now Powell, he refuses to cut rates, and it's not done out of a thoughtful economic decision. It's an attack on Trump's legacy. He hopes to derail next year's midterms. Make book on it. Trump calls him too late Jerome Powell. Well, he is too late, but now he was too late in raising rates previously when he lowered them for the Husk and Cackle Britches to help their political survival. Now he's too late in lowering them. President Trump is fully aware of our nation's July 4th birthday. And he's pressuring the Senate and the House to deliver on this one big, beautiful bill by the nation's birthday. He'd love to give the nation several birthday gifts by the 4th of July. And he's trying to pressure Jerome Powell to be another one of those gifts. Powell's heretofore been pretty stubborn about that, of course, and not willing to play ball. But it's a shame. Because if the economy is roaring, as I've just displayed and laid out for you right off the top, imagine what it would be if interest rates were lowered. Imagine 3% on mortgage rates again. Imagine how homes would fly again. It's frustrating. Trump's frustrated, and I don't know. In time, you may see him move on Powell and fire him, which I believe he can do, but probably not going to do because, you know, no kings or whatever. He's still mindful of the optics of that. Now, as for the mega bill in the Senate, we haven't gotten into that yet. And some of you are already reaching out to me saying, what about Elon? What about Elon? As I said about Elon the last time, and as I always like to encourage you, deep breath, don't panic. Yes, I know he's making idle threats again. I'll tackle it in a second. Hang on. John Fetterman, he is the United States Senator from Pennsylvania, and John Fetterman just wants to go home. He's tired of this vote-a-rama, as it's known, 2718. He's ticked off. He wants to go to the beach. I appreciate the honesty, I guess.
Did you get any clues on the floor about what time this might wrap?
Oh my God! I just want to go home. I've already I've missed our entire trip to the beach. My family's going to be back before we on that. So, and again, I'm going to vote no. There's no drama. You know, the votes are going to go. In fact, the only interesting votes are going to be on the margin, whether that's Collins or Johnson and those. But all the Democrats, we all know how that's going to go. And I don't think it's really helpful to put people here till when some ungodly hour. And again,
just curious, do you think most of the American public wants to hear a United States Senator say he's ticked off, he wants to go home and go to the beach? Fast Eddie, how do you think that plays? You know, he's always Mr. Working Class Joe, blue-collar lunch bucket, have a beer, pull it up on a bar stool. He wears, you know, hoodies. He's just like me. He's always given credit for being the working man senator. So how do you think it lands when he says, I just want to go to the beach?
Yeah, he's also known for being lazy, Chris, and this is something you and I have been talking about for years, but for some reason, now that the left is finally waking up to not liking him, I don't think anybody has time for him saying, I want to go home, I want to go to the beach. I think everybody should be pissed off about that one, right?
I couldn't believe he said it. I mean, again, the stroke, I don't know, maybe it's just he has no filter. I just don't want to go home. My whole family's at the beach, and they're probably going to be home before I even get to go. You're a United States Senator. All right. So here's where things stand right now on the mega bill. Republicans looking to get their sprawling tax and spending bill to President Trump's desk by the 4th of July need to quickly resolve a series of long-running fights over some of the most contentious proposals. Republicans have a 53-47 majority in the Senate. 2 GOP senators, Tom Tillis and Rand Paul, have already firmly opposed the bill, and the House is also narrowly split. Some of the provisions specifically. As I warned, I think the biggest of all of them is the SALT, state and local tax deduction, is a big deal for House Republicans, and the Senate proposal would raise it up another $10,000. Maximum deduction would increase by 1% every year through 2029. The maximum deduction would begin phasing down once income passes $500,000. Many Republicans against raising the SALT cap, seeing it as expensive. Mike Lee wants to permanently extend the $10,000 SALT cap. That would mean risking votes in the House. So in other words, they want to cap it at $10,000, and the House Republicans who are in these high-tax states said, we want it at $40,000. So if the Senate monkeys with this in any way, remember, you've got those House Republicans who wanted it raised. That's going to be a deal. Medicaid. Senate proposal would reduce more than $1 trillion in spending on health care programs over the next decade. Work requirements for able-bodied adults. Is that unreasonable? Exemptions for caregivers or children under 14. Work requirements for Medicaid. We've talked about this before. We have millions of able-bodied working-age men on Medicaid. It's outrageous. And they have figured out that they could save $1 trillion roughly if you have work requirements for Medicaid. Makes sense. Now, of course, the Democrats are screeching that it's about cuts. Another one, energy tax credits, and this is the one Elon's mad about. Elon says that he will actively work toward ensuring GOP lawmakers who vote to pass the big, beautiful bill will lose their primaries. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame, he said on X yesterday, and they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on this earth. Now, I'll just say this about Elon, and Trump, hit back pretty aggressively on it, appropriately. So Elon is very, very good at math. And someone should explain the math that he's working against his own interests. He's claiming he's going to start his own new party, the America Party or something, to challenge Republicans and Democrats. Listen, 85% of the Republican Party, if you only get 85% of the Republican Party or you take them away, however you want to look at it, it's a Democrat victory. Bye-bye Tesla, bye-bye SpaceX, bye-bye Starlink. You give Democrats a victory by taking away Republicans, Elon, that's not good math. Back again for Balance of Nature, and in the Maha movement, one thing we all care about is what's in the container, the ingredients. You flip that thing over, and if you can't pronounce it and you don't recognize it, you put it back. I've seen my kids doing this now. They're very health conscious that way. I like that. And the next generation seems to be more so, and that's why I tell them Balance of Nature, and you can feel good about it too. Balance of Nature is just that. It's nothing more than natural. Fruit and vegetable, plucked right from the soil. No binders, no additives, no fillers. Harvested ingredients that are freeze-dried into a fine powder, and then they use an advanced vacuum cold process to better preserve the nutritional value in that powder. you can know with confidence that you're talking about 31 ingredients that are strictly fruits and vegetables. Every single day, that's what you get in your balance of nature. Imagine a platter with 31 different fruits and vegetables on it. Join me. Take some balance of nature and get healthy. Use that discount code Chris. 35% off plus free shipping when you do. You got to use the discount code Chris, though. All right, so here it is again, the number 800-2468-751. Use the discount code Chris or order online, balanceofnature.com. Discount code Chris to get that 35% off plus free shipping. Here we are, 2025. Happy New Year. And our friends at Gulag America are back and along for the ride. You know, they have been not only great sponsors, but they have been ride or die founders at the Harump Society. I am so appreciative for our friends at Gulag America. I love the work they do. And we have every reason to be optimistic in this new year. They are, we are, all of us are. America's resurgence, it's back. Trump's back. And Gulag America wants to continue to be your premier source for topical and satirical apparel and other gear designed to help give you voice for your love of liberty and your desire to see America great again. I know we all share that in common. Gulag America does too, but that doesn't mean that the deep state's not going to be busy at work. They're not going to go gently into the good night, as they say. So Gulag America is ready. They want you battle ready. They want you geared up, and they've got hilarious stuff for you to buy, and they're going to give it to you at a deep discount to kick off the new year. You ready for this? You take 15% off all orders at gulagamerica.com when you use my promo code Chris15. So if you go shopping today and you see a shirt you like, and you will because they're hilarious, go to gulagamerica.com, type the promo code Chris15. That's Chris15. Type it in the checkout, and then you'll save big. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy new savings with that same quality, that same hilarious attitude that you've come to expect from our buddies at Gulag America, where they say, it's not our wish, it is our warning. Welcome in as we look live at the Capitol Dome this morning, where the Senate is there. They're actively on the floor in what's known as a votorama, 10-minute increments where they're debating amendments to the big, beautiful bill. Apparently, J.D. Vance has arrived on Capitol Hill. He's there in-house, so I don't know if that means they're getting close. I guess that means, actually, he has to cast votes on each one of these amendments, probably, if and when they're close. So we're going to continue to follow it here. Danielle Alvarez is an RNC senior advisor. She joins us this morning and watching it carefully. And Danielle, first of all, good morning. Glad to have you here on Independence Day week.
Good morning. It's great to be with you.
What are you, if you're a betting woman right now, where do you put your money on Donald Trump getting the big, beautiful bill on his desk by 4th of July?
You know, I always bet on the side of Donald Trump. He has a way of getting things done for the American people, of cutting really great deals. This is a squeaker. We're really close. It may not happen by July 4th, but I think that the Senate and the House know exactly what President Trump's expectations are, and more importantly, the expectations of the American people. President Trump has been promising the components of this big, beautiful bill, the historic Trump tax cuts, securing the border, cutting and redoing health care. I mean, he's promised that all throughout the campaign trail. So it's really important that they get this done. And they get it done in the timeline that the president has promised the American people.
The sticking points, I went through some of them a little while ago. For instance, if the Senate Republicans do much about this state and local tax deduction thing, the SALT deduction, we know that House Republicans from higher tax states, that was important to them. So with everything the Senate Republicans do, you got to go back over to the House side, and the House Republicans have got to get together and sign off on it also. That's the tenuousness of this whole thing. I assume both bodies understand that. What do you know about that? And how does Mike Johnson deal with keeping some of those folks happy if the Senate undoes some of the things they wanted?
That's exactly right. And giving the upcoming deadline that was given by President Trump, I've heard Speaker Johnson say that he's been working very closely with Senate leadership to make sure that the bill that passes the Senate is one that the House can pass quickly, because what we cannot have, and we will certainly miss the July 4th deadline, if we then have to go back to the House, take a vote, kick it back to the Senate, and we get into this back and forth. Again, this is really common sense, and anything outside of the president's three main priorities is window dressing. And I do appreciate, by the way, that members of the House and Senate have been fighting for every inch. What a stark contrast from what we saw in the last administration with under Joe Biden's failed leadership. We never had honest conversations. It was always hide the ball, whether it was in the White House, whether it was in the House and Senate under Democrat control. We're seeing honest conversations, and we're seeing members of Congress, specifically Republican members of Congress, fighting for every inch to make this bill better.
Danielle Alvarez is with us, RNC's senior advisor. Talked also a little bit about Elon Musk. Giveth and taketh away sometimes his support. He's enthusiastic and he's passionate, and he's not afraid to say so on all sides all the time. And yesterday he and President Trump got into a back and forth. He pledged that if this bill passes, he'll primary every last Republican if it's the last thing he does. That did not set well with the president, of course. But how do you read Elon Musk's criticism of this thing as only exacerbating the nation's deficit problems?
The reality is that everybody gets an opinion, and President Trump certainly likes to hear from all those around him. But President Trump has made up his mind, and again, these are promises that he made during the campaign trail. What we do know about the bill, and let's talk about the facts here, is that we have nearly $2 trillion in mandatory savings. We've not seen a bill like this in the past. So this is the first of its kind. This is a very conservative bill. We've also seen that that there are estimates and studies that show that President Trump's tariffs is growing the economy. We've also seen estimates that this bill, because of tax cuts, will grow the economy. So this is a great conservative bill. Anybody who is voting against this bill is voting to increase taxes on the American people. That's the baseline of what it comes down to. And I've even heard senators such as Ron Johnson, who again, doing great work for the state of Wisconsin, fighting on the margins of this bill, has said, ultimately, I'm going to fight as hard as I can, but anybody who is voting against this bill is voting to increase taxes. That's what it comes down to. The other, of course, and critical component is making permanent President Trump's border security. He got it done through executive orders. Now let's make border security permanent.
Yeah, the tax cuts expiring. I mean, not getting this done. I assume if for some reason this doesn't get done this week, they stay. Because technically they're due for a recess, I think. Correct? So they'd be staying. Trump has said you got to get this done by the 4th. I assume they stick around if they don't.
That's exactly right. And Senate leadership has said they'll stay. I mean, we've already seen Senator Fetterman talk about wishing he was on a beach vacation. Well, sir, you're already a no vote. So go ahead and relax on the beach. We're good. We know that Republicans have to get this done. We received a huge mandate in November. We won the House. We won the Senate, 13 battleground states, 70 plus million votes, nearly 80 million votes, the popular vote. Let's get this done. I am confident that they will keep working until they do.
Do you think this Senate parliamentarian, she continues to raise objection to this and that, and thus needing that 60 votes to get something passed instead of through reconciliation? Is she someone that you'd like to see Republicans fight or dispatch with quickly? That is to say, we've researched this a little bit, and she serves at the pleasure of the Senate Majority Leader. They don't have to take her recommendations if they don't like. She's already derailed a couple of things here, even in this Votorama session, as I understand it. What do you make of that?
I've heard the same. The reality is I read somewhere that she was an Obama appointee. You kind of hear about the obstruction happening. But again, and I hate to be a broken record here, we've got to focus on the bill and the core promises that President Trump made. I am grateful for all the different amendments that Republicans have put forward, but let's focus on the core promises President Trump made during the campaign trail. And then let's deal with this parliamentarian. Let's get it done. Let's meet this deadline by July 4th. That's the most important thing. Let's make sure that Americans feel these tax cuts immediately, that we can continue to see money in our pockets. That's what we care about. I mean, let's be honest. Conversations about the parliamentarian are pretty wonky. A lot of everyday Americans aren't following along as closely as you and I are. All they really care about is that something gets done, and this is the president's priority. They were his benchmark promises during the campaign.
I know that the political pressure is always important. Trump has a lot of capital. He's spending it. That's important. I understand why having an objective, a deadline, a goal, July 4th. But I have heard someone say, many have said, why why not work on this a little more? What's the arbitrary July 4th deadline? I know everybody would like to go home, but if it takes a couple of weeks into July to get this done and get it better, why not? What's the importance of the deadline in your view?
We have to get it done. I was sitting with a colleague. I worked on the president's campaign trail. President's campaign, I was a senior advisor to his communications team. So in the recent weeks, I was in the West Wing with a colleague who also worked with me on the campaign trail. And he sat and we were so joyful and we said, my goodness, can you believe that everything that we outlined during the campaign, the policies and the promises that the president made. By the way, the promises that the president made, whether it was, again, on the border, on these tax cuts, on tariffs, the president has been talking about these things since nearly 2015, in the case of tariffs, since the 80s, right? Let's get it done. None of these are surprises. The need to get this done is not a surprise. We've been talking about it for over a year and a half, nearly 2 years. By the way, that's just this election cycle, this campaign trail. But the president has been talking about this since 2015 and beforehand. So what is the delay? Let's get it done for the American people. The other report I do want to point to, because you said that the president is making calls and working the phones. I saw an incredible report by Fox News that President Trump and his team have raised $1.4 billion for these midterm elections. Let's get it done. Good governance is how we will continue to be in control, to continue delivering conservative promises is how we're going to win these midterm elections. Let's get it done. Let's do it for the American people.
Senior advisor at the RNC, Daniel Alvarez. By the way, Tom Tillis has said he's out in North Carolina. I've heard chatter that our friend Laura Trump may want that seat. She's a North Carolinian. Heard anything about who might want that seat yet?
Well, let's talk about the process of that. First of all, this seat is now easier to hold now that Tom Tillis is not seeking re-election. It's very unfortunate that we don't have his vote on this bill. I think it's probably best. Americans would have been very frustrated. Certainly North Carolinians are very frustrated that he is not voting for this big, beautiful bill. But ultimately, the process here is going to be that the president's going to pick. Laura Trump would be an incredible choice. Again, she has the brand, she has the last name. And having worked with her at the RNC, she has such drive, such work ethic that you don't typically see in politicians. I think she'd make a great candidate. I think she'd make a great senator. But ultimately, I think the president is the one who's going to have those conversations with his team, going to have conversations with those interested. And the wonderful thing is Republicans have a deep bench.
Yeah, that's for sure. Danielle Alvarez at the RNC. Grateful for your perspective. Thanks so much. Hope you have a great week.
Thanks for having me.
We'll take a quick break here. That Senate parliamentarian, by the way, got involved in trying to take away Medicaid from illegal aliens. The parliamentarian got involved and said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You need 60 votes." Thanks, lady. RFK Jr. just gave an interview to Tucker Carlson, and this really doesn't have anything to do with health per se, but it's one of those things that you wish everyone could understand and know about Donald Trump. RFK Jr., a Kennedy, one of the most prominent names in Democrat politics until they threw him overboard, said this about a Republican who used to be a Democrat in Donald Trump, 2732.
A lot of things have surprised me about the president because I, bought into this fact that he was this one-dimensional character, that he was kind of a bombastic narcissist and all this. And, and part of it is hearing it all the time on TV, but also, the way that he conducts himself sometimes validates those. If you have that narrative, you can find things in what he does that validate that narrative. But what I've been surprised in getting to know him is what a kind of deep, multidimensional and thoughtful character he is, and how well. I also thought, he doesn't read, and he's not interested in anything. He's immensely curious, inquisitive, and immensely knowledgeable. He's encyclopedic in certain areas that you wouldn't expect, like music, and he gets very emotional about music. And,
yes.
And he knows the whole story behind every song.
Pavarotti and James Brown.
Yeah, he cries when he hears Pavarotti. He said to me one night when we were at Mar-a-Lago with the Amarillas, he said, Amarillas, you understand this because she loves music too. And he said, but most of the people here, they don't understand it. They don't get it. And in terms of sports, he's an encyclopedia. He knows everything. And on Wall Street, he knows how everybody made their money and the stories. And he's, an incredible raconteur about telling all these stories. And then,
so he's smart, he's curious, he's well-read, he's cultured, he's not an ogre. A woman who's a typical Democrat voter sat down with me at dinner. Tell me about Trump. What do you know? I said, he's a really decent guy, actually. More in a minute. We are continuing to monitor the big, beautiful bill. One of the things in this that Republicans have tried to strip out of it are the EV mandates, all the green energy stuff that Donald Trump said, fine, go ahead and strip it out. People suspect that maybe that's what makes Elon so angry, is very specifically the tax credits for EVs. And Trump said, listen, man, I don't have anything against EVs, but it's big, beautiful oil and coal that makes the world go round. And we're talking about nuclear, too. And if you've watched or listened to this show for any length of time, there can be no denying that while maybe wind and solar is part of an energy portfolio, you're not getting around oil. You're not getting around gas and natural gas and developing offshore for drilling, for liquefied natural gas. You need it. And there's a group called Prairie Operating Group. The CEO is Ed Kovalik, and he joins us this morning. They have been featured on our show, and I've talked about them before. And Ed, we're so glad to have you this morning, first of all. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. It's great to be with you, Chris.
Yeah, this is something that I'm glad you're doing. I'm glad you're taking on this campaign at Prairie Operating Group, because I think I've long asked myself, people in energy production and in the energy industry, I've said, why isn't there more aggressive campaign and pushback against this nonsense that you're polluters or whatever? And I was so glad to see that you're at the fore here in that pushback.
Yeah, I don't know why our industry has been so apologetic about the good work that we do in feeding over 8 billion people on the planet and powering our way of life. We certainly aren't apologetic about it. We're proud of it, and frankly, a little bit tired of being demonized. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity to educate the public about just how important fossil fuels are.
Just for people who don't know, Prairie Operating Group, since you've come on board, tell us a little about your company. What do you do specifically?
Oh, we're a publicly traded oil and gas shale driller operating out of the great state of Colorado in the DJ Basin. And, we have a great portfolio of proven reserves that we develop, and we're consolidating other similar types of assets in Colorado.
When you hear, obviously there's some politically that call, oil production dirty and dangerous and not friendly to the environment. Then on the other side, you get drill, baby, drill, let's make it happen. The thing is, as we've talked over the years, companies like yours, you can't just turn on a dime. And I've always wondered, you're the big boss of this company developing energy. Politicians come, politicians go. The tides turn. Violent shifts in your industry politically all the time. How does that impact you day to day? Because it's not like you can't just flip a switch and turn on oil and it comes pouring out of the ground. I mean, it's a years-long process. So how have you navigated this over the years that energy has become so politicized?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you're right. We can't turn on a dime. We are mired with regulations that we have to operate within, especially in the state of Colorado. For instance, the time that it takes us to get permits to be able to drill wells is pretty long, and so it does take time. And while I'm 100% behind the president's focus on making energy inexpensive and widely available for our citizens, there's a limit to everything. And so drill, baby, drill is a great idea, but it's limited in that it's really difficult to grow production in this country for a host of reasons. And you kind of touched on one. Another one that I think very few people really appreciate is that most of the fossil fuels produced in the U.S. are the result of shale drilling, which is what we do. And with shale drilling, you're really developing a very quickly depleting asset. So when we drill a well, which, by the way, Chris, we drill in a little over 4 days, so we're wildly efficient at it. But once you drill a well and you put it on production, the reserves of that well are mostly produced in the first 3 years of the life of that well, and then are in pretty massive decline for the next 30 years thereafter. So shale as an industry is very much a industry that's forced to replace the oil that it produces every year, let alone trying to grow. So just keeping up with the 13 million barrels that we produce in this country is hard enough, let alone trying to grow.
How about domestic production versus foreign production, imports versus domestic production? I remember in Trump's first term, I heard stories of we had container ships full of oil floating off the coasts because we were just awash in oil. I don't know where things stand today. Is it true that we could produce so much domestically that we wouldn't need foreign adversaries of any kind for our oil supply? I've heard others say that the market is dependent on outside sources, that we couldn't be completely self-reliant because, frankly, a business like yours needs the export. Is that true? I don't know. I'm just curious economically.
No, we pretty much consume just about 100% of every molecule of fossil fuels that we make in this country. And really the dynamics of importing the bit that we do is a function of what refineries can process. And we haven't built a new refinery in this country since God knows when. So, our energy systems are challenged in other ways. But we have a tremendous resource of oil and gas in this country. Many have called the U.S. the Saudi Arabia of natural gas, for instance, and natural gas is really a great transition fuel for powering the tremendous growth in demand and energy that we're seeing, particularly from data centers and AI-driven applications.
Ed, I hate interrupting you, but I'm so glad you said that. And this is something I just pound and pound and pound. Ed Kovalik is with us, by the way, CEO of Prairie Operating Group. Our energy demand is not decreasing, so for all these people that want to dogpile on a company like yours or any other, quote, fossil fuel, you're not going to be able to power our energy needs without you guys and or nuclear. It's just not going to happen. We cannot wind and solar our way into the AI generation, Ed.
No, it's incredible. If you look at energy demand, it goes up every year, year after year. It's a straight line up and to the right. There have only been 2 instances in which we've seen demand curtailed. One is the financial crisis of 07-08. And immediately thereafter, you saw sort of a growth in demand and back on the same growth trajectory. And then COVID, clearly, when we were all forced to stay home and not drive our cars, you saw a decrease in demand in that year. But guess what happened the next year? The demand curve just went back to the same kind of up and to the right growth rate that it's always showed. So we know one thing for sure, which is the demand for energy goes up every year. And we also know that most of energy is provided by fossil fuels. So this notion that fossil fuels are an obsolescent asset and we'll all be able to, turn the switch off and get electricity through other means is a joke. And even if we could, everything that surrounds our life is made with fossil fuels.
That was my next point. And by the way, oilfacts.com, the website, I would encourage people to go to just get, read up on this stuff because it's great stuff to just have top of mind when you get into a discussion with people about energy at oilfacts.com. You've got a lot of that, those bullet points there. All the demand for petroleum and petroleum-based products. I mean, from pharmaceuticals to cosmetics to life-saving devices. I mean, we could go on and on and on. Critically important to it. And yet your guys are demonized as polluters. And here's what I know. Here's what I know about people that have been in energy production that are friends of mine. It's never been cleaner, actually. It's people demonize what you guys do, but it's not. Pollution is different than energy development. And this is another thing that ticks me off. Pollution, no one wants pollution. No one wants dirty air. No one wants dirty water. What you guys are doing is not dirty air and dirty water. It's different, and I wish people better understood that. I know you guys do, obviously.
Yeah, no, look, we are really proud of producing the cleanest molecule of fossil fuels anywhere in the world, particularly in Colorado. You know, we don't flare gas. We have great emissions control technologies that we employ. What we do is really state of the art. And at the end of the day, last I checked, you know, everybody on the planet lives on one planet. We share one atmosphere. It doesn't help that while we operate as cleanly as we do, other countries around the world clearly don't. And while China's building a new coal plant every week or however frequently they're doing that, you know, the fact that they're picking on us for polluting is really dishonest. At the end of the day, I mean, we're surrounded by dairy farms where we operate. I think the dairy farms emit more carbon than we do.
Ed Kovalik, CEO of Prairie Operating Group, and I mean this sincerely, thank you for being on the front lines of energy production and the public relations campaign to push back against the politicization of our energy needs. It infuriates me. I am so glad that Prairie Operating Group has taken the bull by the horns here. Oilfacts.com to become an insider and learn more about what we're talking about. Ed, thank you so much for your time and your patronage. We appreciate it.
Chris, thank you for having me on this morning. Really appreciate it.
Quick break on the Stigall Show. All right, we talked about this yesterday at the Wall Street Journal. Amazon is on the cusp of using more robots than humans in its warehouses. The e-commerce giant spent years automating tasks previously done by humans in its facilities. It's deployed more than 1 million robots to those workplaces. And that's the most it's ever had, and near the count of human workers at the facilities. Company warehouses buzz with metallic arms plucking items from shelves and wheeled droids that motor around the floors, ferrying the goods for packaging. In other corners, automated systems help sort the items which other robots assist in packaging for shipment. One of Amazon's newer robots, called Vulcan, has a sense of touch that enables it to pick items from numerous shelves. Amazon has taken recent steps to connect its robots to order fulfillment processes so that the machines can work in tandem with others and humans. They're one step closer to that realization of the full integration of robotics, said one robotics consulting firm. Some 75% of Amazon's global deliveries are assisted in some way by robotics. The growing automation has helped Amazon improve productivity while easing pressure on the company to solve problems like heavy staff turnover at its fulfillment centers. Previously, we were just talking about energy. You think you're going to have factories full of robots without a lot of energy and AI without a lot of energy? Not going to happen. I mean, so while we talk about one sector of the economy being undermined by robots, taking away human jobs, I can only imagine our energy sector is going to explode in growth because you cannot power this development without it. And meanwhile, also from the Wall Street Journal, digital workers have arrived in banking. Similar to human employees, these digital workers have direct managers they report to and autonomously in areas like coding and payment instruction validation. Soon they'll have access to their own email accounts and may even be able to communicate with colleagues in other ways like through Microsoft Teams. This is next level. While we're still in early stages for this technology, said the Chief Operations and Information Officer at New York Mellon Bank. She said this is next level, and I'm sure in 6 months' time it will become very, very prevalent. What the bank calls digital workers, other banks may refer to as AI agents. And while the industry lacks a clear consensus on exact terminology, it's clear that technology has a growing presence in financial services. Others aren't necessarily taking the same approach, but many say they are shaping AI into apps that are increasingly replicating the capabilities of workflow in human employees, taking on more and more tasks like software development, lifecycle, and research. JP Morgan Chase says they're still figuring out the exact right access and management controls and system integrations and how human-like these tech systems will become. So, AI banking. I got to tell you, yesterday I was trying to get a hold of somebody at a rental car company for a question about a bill. Ed, I can't. This company literally will not allow me to reach them. I can't reach a physical human no matter how hard I tried. It was the chatbot thing. It demanded that I continue to talk with it. So, like it or not, we're coming to an era, maybe in almost all facets, certainly even now banking. Hi, may I help you? An automated figure helping you do your banking. We talked about this yesterday. I mean, it's here in many cases. Do you like dealing with humans?
I do like dealing with
chatbot.
humans, unless the chatbot can get me there quicker, which has not been the case, at least in my experience.
There's still nuance to questions, right? That's the thing. I could never get a straight answer out of the chatbot thing. Like, there are nuances to your questions, and they kind of have this sort of broad, overarching theme coded into their system, but never very specific and detailed stuff. I don't know. This is one of those things. It kind of depends on your point of view. If you're kind of one of these glass half full types, you think, boy, sky's the limit. Imagine what we can do if we don't have to rely on people who need breaks and vacations and, they don't have injury attorneys at work. You know, they're not taking time off and that sort of thing. I'm sure some people who are higher level, high skilled types are maybe threatened by it. White collar jobs, they say, are the first that are going to be tackled, as is evidenced in this Wall Street Journal story on banking. A lot of people that sit behind computer terminals are probably the ones that are sweating it the most. This is why I've often thought that the whole development of people working from home, like the ready embrace of everybody just working behind a computer screen at the house, everybody said, this is awesome. I'm more productive. Yeah, and you're steadily making the case that you're not all that necessary. I don't know. If it's me, I want to be physically around, showing, you need me here? Look what I physically do. At least try. This is the Stigall Show. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation, and they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got two dentists who are really, really want to learn and really, really willing to learn to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office that will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Hey there, it's Chris Stigall. You know, this past summer, I went on a cruise with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Mike Gallagher, my Salem radio colleagues, and I met so many listeners like you who have been on my PhD weight loss program journeys, and I decided for myself it was time to jump in. I wanted to give this Dr. Ashley everybody's been talking about call myself. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team customize plans for your body to make weight loss simple, and they provide 80% of your food at no additional cost. They treat your whole person, and so I've decided to join so many of you. Join Sebastian Gorka, join Mike Gallagher, and all the weight they've lost, I'd like to do it myself. I've decided to call up my PhD weight loss. I hope you'll join me. Maybe we can start this weight loss journey together. Reach out, get started, tell them I sent you and said hi. I'd love to hear how you're doing at 864-664-1900. That's 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Don't forget to tell them Chris Stigall is going to start losing weight with you. How do you do, folks? Glad you're here today on the Stigall Show, Hour 3. If you're not a listener for the full 3 hours, you can always catch the podcast. I hope you will. Some of you only get portions of this show if you listen on great radio affiliates all over the country. Maybe you just catch a certain chunk of this on the Salem News Channel. You can catch all 3 hours every single day at chrisstigall.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. We've also got my 3 times a week newsletter, the Harumph Society there, social media. I try to keep up to date with as best I can. We get busy from time to time, but I try. And in fact, coming up in a little bit, yesterday, if you're a Harumph Society follower, you know, but it's open to everybody to read. I wrote an open letter of thanks to President Trump here as we head into the 4th of July, America's birthday. I genuinely, sincerely felt it on my heart to say thank you, at least on behalf of myself, because when I think about where we were a year ago, and he was heading into that debate with that pretend president, that unbelievable shell of a human being that we were all pretending was leading the country, and we saw it on live television, the two of these men debating, and Joe Biden couldn't string one sentence together. It was really, in some ways, you'd almost felt sorry for the guy. It was ultimately his political undoing, and then Cacklebritches, his pretend vice president, was foisted on all of us as a legitimate candidate, and here we are today. And that's after, by the way, an attempt on President Trump's life. And I was really thinking to myself, 6 months into this presidency, roughly, and what a dent in this mess that was left for him he has made. So I felt a lot of thanks for that, and I'm going to share that with you in just a little bit. Also want to share with you, if you are in or around the San Antonio area, you guys in Houston, I know you're not too terribly far down the road. I would love to meet you. Coming up, here we are on July 1st. It's my sister's birthday, incidentally. Happy birthday to my sister, Shannon. But in just a few days, as a matter of fact, July 19th, that's a Saturday, going to be in San Antonio for our Red, White, and Q event, the Texas Pride Barbecue. $10 off on tickets right now. And this is this is a great barbecue meal. It's a cash bar. There's going to be live music, I believe a classic car show. But most of all, just a chance for you and me to get to know one another. I was so thrilled that 9:30 a.m. The Answer in San Antonio said, why don't you come down and meet some of our folks? I said, it would be my honor. I've never been to San Antonio. So looking very, very forward to meeting you. And then our affiliate in Houston said, hey, you know, we're not far down the road. If you want to get tickets through us, you can do it. AM1070theanswer.com in Houston, AM1070theanswer.com. Or again, get your tickets at 930amtheanswer.com. So Houston, San Antonio, if you guys are listeners, I would love to meet you. Again, it's Saturday, July 19th. You can get all the information at 930amtheanswer.com or AM1070theanswer.com. Spend the Saturday with me. Have a little barbecue. This Texas barbecue that everybody raves about, I have yet to sample, so I'm looking very forward to it. I've had Memphis. No, I've not. Todd Starn says Memphis barbecue kicks everybody's butt. I've heard people tell me Carolina barbecue kicks everybody's butt. Of course, I'm a Kansas Cityan. So I know a thing or two about barbecue myself. So looking forward to it. Can't wait to meet you on July 19th. Hope you'll grab your tickets. Again, our telephone number is 855-STIGAL. Donald Trump is refiling his lawsuit over this Seltzer poll, the Des Moines Register. You remember this one? He dropped a lawsuit in federal court Monday against the Des Moines Register and pollster Ann Seltzer. This is the one. The legal maneuver comes after Trump suffered an adverse ruling in federal court. Trump suing over a poll that showed him trailing Cacklebritches by 3 points in Iowa. He ended up winning by 13. Of course, and he alleged amounts to consumer fraud. And so that's going to be fun to watch. Trump is not forgetting. He has taken names, as they say, and now he's out there trying to kick butt. CBS is in the process of trying to figure out what they're going to do in a settlement. He's already tackled ABC and CNN. These media entities are slowly, brick by brick, building Donald Trump's new presidential library. He may not have to spend a nickel by the time these lawsuits all play out and people settle with him. 855-STIGAL to get in here. Okay, let's turn to Virginia for a minute. This has been a fascinating study for the Republicans. The win a 3 years ago now, I guess we're coming up on the term now, Glenn Youngkin stunned the country with a victory. over a well-known Democrat commodity, and I think largely Randy Weingarten screeching at the 11th hour helped put Glenn Youngkin over the top. I mean, he's a great candidate himself, but it's been fascinating. Winsome Sears now running for that seat because Glenn Youngkin has termed out. That leaves the lieutenant governor's post open. Enter a gentleman named John Reed. We'd like to get to know. JohnReedForVirginia.com is the web address to help his campaign, JohnReedForVirginia.com. Mr. Reed, pleasure to meet you. Good morning.
Hey, thank you very much for having me here. We're getting excited about tonight's Unity rally where Winsome running for governor, Jason Miyares, who's running for re-election as Attorney General, and I will all be on the stage together in Northern Virginia, which is a tough nut to crack for Republicans, but we're going to put in the time to try to win over votes because there are a lot of voters in Northern Virginia who I think are unhappy with Democrats, and we're gonna beg for their votes.
Everyone has watched Virginia for a while now, trying to read it and figure out, is it a bellwether state? Is it a mostly blue state? We all understand that D.C. contingent that lives in Virginia, a lot of them vote blue, and I think most states have to deal with the population centers voting blue. Was Virginia a fluke with the Glenn Youngkin victory, or is there still lots of healthy opportunity for Republicans?
Oh, I think there's a great opportunity for Republicans, and the reason is the Democrats have gone crazy. They've gone way to the left, and most Virginians, right there in the center. Sure, the center has shifted a little bit, but, I'm finding that even people who've said they voted Democrat in the past are looking at the trans ideology issue, which is really disrupting their kids' education and their confidence in their daughters' futures. When they look at the tax policy that the Democrats are pushing, which is much more socialist, if not flat-out communist, where they're going to take money from people who are working and hand it over to people who aren't working. I think people are rejecting that. And, it used to be that Virginia had Republicans and Democrats who disagreed on the fringe, but now the Democrats have gone so far to the left and they've purged their party of anybody who has any sense of normalcy that Republicans are poised for a great comeback.
What is the sense after now Glenn Youngkin has surprised everyone and won? I think a lot of people just did not see that coming. It was always considered one of the biggest upset victories for a Republican ever, I think, because there was such a known commodity in the Democrat candidate. What's the view? How do you think the Commonwealth views his performance and his leadership, Winsome Sears' leadership? Because that obviously impacts you when you're running statewide.
Sure. I think people have been very happy with Glenn Youngkin. He's been mild-mannered. He hasn't reacted with hostility, even when hostility has been directed at him from Democrat leadership. And, the Democrats themselves don't seem to have learned a lesson from that devastating loss where they lost governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and a lot of other important seats. They have doubled and tripled down on the bad judgment that was on display by Terry McAuliffe and Democrats who were leading school boards and boards of supervisors. Terry McAuliffe said, we don't trust parents to run their own kids' lives and to be in charge of their own children's education. And most parents, even people who are a little left of center, did not like that. And so I kind of thought, well, they'll learn their lesson and they'll rein it in a little bit. They haven't done that. They put in bill after bill after bill, which continue to push the envelope and neuter parents, and they're not going to tolerate it. I think we're in
John
good
Reed
shape.
John Reed is running for lieutenant governor of Virginia. There's a big event in Vienna, Virginia. On stage tonight will be Mr. Reed, as well as the candidate for, you said, not just Winsome Sears, who's running for governor, and you, but you said there'll be a third candidate joining you.
Yep, Jason Miyares is running for re-election as Attorney General. Here's another guy who's been a responsible member of the House of Delegates for years, a very talented attorney. I was a radio host in addition to running communications for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and in the U.S. Senate. But I used to have Jason Miyares on my radio program frequent curveballs and try to, disrupt the apple cart. And he just wouldn't fall for it. I like this guy. He's really solid.
Well, this is exciting. I hope, I wish you all the best. The birthplace of school choice in the kind of its modern form came out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I admire greatly the school choice movement that was really, it became a national sensation because of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I hope that's alive and well, and I hope that parents, voting age parents out there in Virginia will keep Mr. Reid in mind as they help you campaign and become the next lieutenant governor along with Winsome Sears as governor. John Reid, R-E-I-D, johnreidforvirginia.com. Mr. Reid, we wish you all the very best. I hope you'll come back, and good luck to you in your campaign.
I sincerely appreciate you having me on. I'm with you on the school choice issue. You can count on me to fight for that. The public schools aren't delivering Rhodes Scholars across the board, so we need to let parents be in charge. Thanks for having me.
Hugely important. Thank you, John. Our telephone number, again, 855-STIGAL, if you want to get in here. I will tell you that coming up here at the tail end of this week, it's the 4th of July, and if all goes according to plan, I have perhaps one of the most exciting guests to deliver you, at least to me. I don't know if he'll excite you as much as he excites me, but it's like Christmas morning for me this week, if this comes to fruition. I might tell you more later. I might, but I don't want to jinx it. Donald Trump is suing Los Angeles over their sanctuary city policies. Trump administration suing L.A., claiming the city's law discriminates against federal law enforcement agencies by treating them differently from other law enforcement authorities. The lawsuit filed in Central District of California notes that Trump campaigned and won on the promise of presidential action, deporting the millions of illegal immigrants the previous administration permitted through its open borders policy to enter the country unlawfully. The suit names Mayor Karen Bass, the city council president, as defendants and claims that Los Angeles laws and policies obstruct the enforcement of immigration laws. A spokesman for Bass did not immediately respond to the request for comment. That's exciting. CNN, of course, is doing their level best to, somebody said to me yesterday, Stigall, it's fine to crack down on illegals, but what is this masked business? I said, what are you talking about? These ICE agents are storming into these places and they're covered in masks. And I thought to myself, the first snarky thing I wanted to say was, a couple of years ago, you wanted us all behind masks permanently. That was the first thing I thought to say. But I relented, Eddie, and I played along, and I said, okay, what's your problem with masks? Well, they look like goons. They look like hooligans. What's your answer to why ICE agents are wearing masks when they storm into these facilities? There is an answer, of course.
Yeah, Chris,
what is
they
it?
do a very dangerous job, and you have a lot of people trying to dox them and ruin their lives, and their families shouldn't be subject to that should these goons find out who they are when they're just trying to do their job. That's what they signed up to do as ICE agents.
Isn't it interesting? Again, the left loved masks. They love masks today. They love their women covered head to toe with slits for eyes because they celebrate Islamists. They love COVID masks. They love hiding behind masks when they have their Palestinian protests on college campuses. The left loves masks. They literally and figuratively love masks. They like to pretend they're one thing when behind the mask they're doing another. But they're all very, very mad that ICE agents are wearing masks when they do these raids. And yes, Fast Eddie is exactly correct.
2 minutes.
If they don't, there is a movement in this country that is hell-bent on outing anybody that's in law enforcement, harassing their families, maybe causing real damage to property, maybe even targeting them. I mean, we saw this lunatic guy, 20 years old, shooting at firefighters after he... I'd still like to know more about that story, incidentally. I'll keep a sharp eye on that one. The 20-year-old that just started brush fires in Idaho, and then when the firefighters rushed in, he started picking them off. That's one to follow. Hopefully he's just mentally ill and not driven by politics, but I have a funny feeling. We'll just wait and see. Here's CNN, to the point Eddie was just making, 2717. Here's CNN effectively helping promote an app that does just what we were talking about.
ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE Block, and it's controversial to say the least. Senator Claire Duffy is with us now. How does this work, Claire, and what are the legal implications?
Yeah, John, I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of immigrations and customs enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert. This is a free iPhone app.
That's enough. It's just they're doing an advertisement to help people evade the law. CNN just taking out some time. This is the Stigall Show. All righty, let's turn to the press conference from Caroline Leavitt yesterday, one of the strongest White House press secretaries I believe we've ever had. She runs through the list of successes in this historic last week of Donald Trump that it's just undeniable. And I was feeling it myself as the week started. I headed into the weekend last weekend. I'm heading into this 4th of July. You ask me, do I feel pride of country? I do. And look, do I happen to adore this president's agenda? I do. But I've never felt more bullish about the future of this country with this president at the helm. And here are some of the historic wins that Caroline ticked off in 27-22.
We are truly coming off a historic week of President Trump racking up win after win on behalf of the American people. President Trump restored peace through strength and acted decisively as commander-in-chief to obliterate the immediate threat of the Iranian regime's nuclear capabilities, and then brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, which continues to hold. Then, the president traveled to the Netherlands and achieved a monumental win for the United States and the NATO alliance by getting our allies to dedicate 5% of their GDPs to military spending. As a result of President Trump unleashing American energy dominance, summer gas prices are at the lowest they have been in 4 years, heading into the July 4th week. And with the incoming Trump economic boom, the stock market continues to roar back, with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both hitting record highs. And on this point of an economic boom, I bring to you original correspondence from the President of the United States to our Fed Chair, Jerome Powell.
Yeah, which we played for you a little earlier in the show. I was just looking at CNN's polling with the GOP, who strongly approve. 5 months in, Donald Trump is at a record high with the GOP voters at this time in the presidency. So 5 months into George H.W. Bush's presidency, 46% strongly approved. 5 months into Bush 43's first term, 59% approval. Donald Trump has bested his own approval in the first 5 months of his first term. 53% is what he had in his first term. 5 months into this term, Donald Trump enjoys, 5 months in, better approval, strong approval from GOP voters at 63%, more than any other. It's a record high with the GOP at this point in the presidency. Donald Trump on his way to attend Alcatraz Detention Center in Florida. I told you this. He is overhauling the eco-permitting to fast-track new roads and bridges. The Transportation Secretary just announced yesterday the agency has historically had some of the slowest permitting timelines across the federal government. And so now he wants roads and bridges repaired faster. Everything is just go, go, go. And as I said to you earlier, even Democrats have to acknowledge they're rudderless, and this guy is firing on all cylinders. Van Jones, 27-25 here. Van Jones has to confess, Trump's just outfoxing us at every turn. He's the roadrunner to our coyote.
How the hell did Donald Trump figure out the mainstream media is the fringe and the fringe is now the mainstream? How the hell did Donald Trump figure out? I mean, Joe Rogan is obvious, right? Like, we knew the guy had a big audience. It's not like we were like stunned, but like, how the hell was he, the 78-year-old guy who doesn't even have a computer and still like writes handwritten notes? How did he become the guy who cracked the code on, to your point, running a cultural I don't even want to say campaign. Running.
It was a movement. Look,
heading a cultural movement versus a campaign.
Every one of your people knows Elon. Listen. So everybody keeps. The problem is you have a framework in your mind that how can Donald Trump? Guys, can we cut it out? Donald Trump is not an idiot. Donald Trump. Let me just be very clear. Donald Trump is smarter than me, you, and all critics. You know how I know? Because he has the White House, the Senate, the House.
Totally agree.
The popular vote. He has a massive media ecosystem bigger than the mainstream built around him and for him, and a religious fervor in a political movement around him. And his best buddy is the richest person in the history of the world, and the most relevant Kennedy is with him.
Yeah, well, for all those reasons and many more. Now, I always get uncomfortable when they say a religious fervor. Donald Trump is not my savior. Jesus Christ is my savior. Donald Trump is someone I admire politically more than I've ever admired another political figure in my life. I don't worship Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a man. He is fallible. He has and will make mistakes. He is a sinner just like me. So this is not about worshiping Donald Trump, but it is thanking Donald Trump for his leadership, in which I did in an open letter to him yesterday at the Harump Society. Those of you who are not Harumpers, I made this available to everybody. I put it to words, and I said it this way. Dear President Trump, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering dedication to our nation. Your leadership, marked by courage and resolve, has profoundly strengthened America in the face of relentless challenges. Your sacrifices inspire millions, including me, and I feel compelled to thank you for your extraordinary commitment. The August 2022 FBI raid on your home was a blatant injustice, yet it didn't deter you. You faced 6 baseless lawsuits, clear attempts to derail your campaign, yet your resolve grew only stronger, inspiring millions. Most remarkably, you survived 2 assassination attempts during your campaign, including the harrowing incident in July of 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a bullet nearly struck your head as a result of an intentionally inadequate Secret Service protection. Moments later, with blood on your face, you stood tall, defiantly raised your fist, and rallied the nation with fight, fight, fight. Your appearance at the RNC just days later, the convention, with a bandage on your ear, served as a powerful testament to your unyielding spirit. Your hands-on leadership has delivered tangible results, shaping the historic Supreme Court decisions that we've just seen, to securing our borders, dismantling divisive DEI policies. Your bold tariff policies, though heavily criticized, have generated billions in revenue and revitalized American business and industry. Your focus on lowering gas prices has curbed inflation and has eased the burden on American families. You've rebuilt our military. You've strengthened its capabilities. You've restored a deep sense of pride and patriotism across the nation. Through the DOGE initiative, you've tackled government waste and corruption, paving the way for more accountable and efficient administrations in the future. Your relentless push for the Big Beautiful Bill, which is nearing its passage, ensures Americans get to keep more of their hard-earned disposable income. Your clear vision prioritizes America's prosperity and safety, earning you admiration at home and global respect for your diplomatic achievements. Your decisive actions to dismantle Iran's nuclear program have bolstered global stability, showcasing your commitment to American safety. So thank you, President Trump, for enduring personal attacks and mortal risks with steadfastness. Your mission to make America great again is not just a slogan. It reflects your rare, inspiring resolve. I personally am deeply grateful for your sacrifices and the lasting impact you continue to have on our nation and the world. Yes, sir, you are in fact a stable genius. That was my open letter to Donald Trump. If you'd like to read that again, I have posted it at the Harump Society. I made it available to everybody yesterday, but I thought I'd read it here just in case you're not a Harumper, because it is how I feel. I believe he's owed our thanks. I believe he's owed my trust, because he nearly lost it all. His fortune, his family, his home was violated, his literal life. And we've never seen a president with this kind of resolve and these kind of results 5 months in. And it's why I know I'm not alone when we see a poll like CNN just showed us. 63% of Republicans strongly support this president. It's because he's doing everything he promised to do. And we've seen the opposition bubble up out of places that disappoint us. Activist judges, media, that goes without saying. Democrats at every turn, including some in his own party. But he continues to get up and he just keeps swinging. Undeterred, doing what he knows is right. It's refreshing. It's inspiring. We haven't had real steely-spined leadership like this. At least I haven't. I know many people will point to Reagan. Reagan predated me. So in my 48 years on planet Earth, since I've been able to vote, this is a first for me. This is a guy I will talk about to my grandchildren, hopefully someday. This is one of those kind of once-in-a-generation presidencies. And it's so thrilling that we're here. And we should soak it up on this 4th of July. We should really soak this moment in history up. It won't last forever. He can't stick around forever. Who's next? Who's on deck? Yeah, we have a deep bench. Will it ever be quite like this? Will we ever have a president who tells it like it is, quite like this? I don't know. We can hope. But this is a rare treat to have real leadership. And so I just felt I had to thank the guy. And it's just so fitting that it's Independence Day on Friday, isn't it? 855-STIGALL if you want to get in here. Glad to have you along on the Stigall Show. Jeff, I'm glad you called. Welcome into the show. Good morning.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning to you. Enjoy your show tremendously.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
It's a little bit off topic now, but your earlier discussion this morning in your previous hour, you were talking about energy and fossil fuels, and I live in the middle of the Permian Basin, the oil fields and gas fields, and I just want to point out to people that if it weren't for the fossil fuel industry, they would not have a seat to sit on in their EV car. It would be a wood box, or it might be a piece of steel. They would not have a smartphone. They would not have a television. They would not have a printer. They would not have a computer, because all of these things are fossil fuel byproducts. They would not have plastic enclosures for their food at the stores. They would not have refrigerators. They would not have freezers. All of these things are made out of fossil fuel. And nobody is talking about that. Nobody brings it up. Their entire way of life, if they got rid of fossil fuel, would go away, and they go back to the horse and buggy days.
It's such a great point. And by the way, how important is that industry? You say it's in your backyard there in New Mexico. How important is that industry to local salaries, local commerce, people's jobs, right? Lots of jobs tied to that, I'm sure.
It is the heart of this community, this area. It's also the heart. We live in the great state of New Mexico, if you want to call it great. It's a blue state. Down here in this part of the state, in the oil basin, it's a red state. But we furnish probably 80% of the state's budget through taxes, through fossil fuel taxes.
Wow. Is that right?
And so if you get rid of fossil fuels, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, and you're going to go back, as I said, to the horse and buggy days.
Jeff, thank you very, very much. That's Jeff in New Mexico. I've been meaning to see this show that I don't know if I haven't even watched one episode yet, so I don't know how many episodes there are, or if it's already done. Landman? Was that the Billy Bob Thornton one, Fast Eddie, that I know we played a clip of it because he did a great riff on oil and the importance of oil to some eco-wacko in that show. We played it once. It was fabulous, but I guess is it over? I don't know.
Landman, I think it's a newer show, so I believe if they haven't wrapped their first season or do that split season thing, I think you're good. You can catch up on that pretty quickly.
People have said, I don't know, there are mixed reviews on it as it goes on. I mean, it came out of the box hot, and so I don't know. I don't know if it holds. I can't recommend it to you, but I do know that there's one particular monologue that Billy Bob Thornton as an oil man delivers in the show that we've played here before. It's fantastic. We might have to go dig that up and play it here on this show one of these days. Let's go to Brent in Los Angeles. Hey, Brent, glad you called. Good morning.
Blessings, Chris.
Yes,
Thank you,
I
sir.
think our righteous and courageous President Trump is indeed a religious figure like King David. Van Jones and all progressive pagan Democrats just can't see it because they are absolutely godless.
You think he's now? See, some people think that means you're a crazy for you're talking about him like he's a deity, and that's not healthy. You say what?
No, I said he's like King David. He's a man. He's definitely a man, but he's a great man. He is a man of biblical qualities.
Mm-hmm. So your sense of it is, historically speaking, he's an important figure, however you frame it.
Yes, he's like Cyrus. He's like Napoleon. He's also had the quality of President Truman. He's going to be going down in history as one of the great figures of civilization.
I will say this, and I appreciate that very, very much. Large Catholic families, I know, didn't they used to, Eddie, wasn't this a thing? You're Catholic. Didn't large Catholic families often have photos of, like, Kennedy hanging in their house?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that true?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, especially Irish Catholics. Yes.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
And I don't think any of them were, like, worshiping him, but he was an important enough figure to them. I don't know how many people have pictures, portraits anyway, of Trump hanging up, unless it's a photo of them with Trump. But that's what I would say to my Democrat friends. Go back and look up Democrat history and their love affair with people like FDR and Kennedy. That's Trump to most of us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day on The Stigall Show. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.